video where today I'm going to talk to you about some of the best beginner power tools. Not the specific brands, but a little bit about the different types, including the power drill, circular saw, jigsaw, and a power sander, so that you'll be prepared to use these basic tools and have a better understanding if and when you need it. So let's jump in. The first thing to note is that you're working with power tools. Power tools, as the name implies, have a lot of power. They have the capability to do a lot of damage to you. So, as necessary, you're going to want to put on eye protection, ear protection for your hearing, mouth protection such as a mask or some sort of mask if you're sanding a lot, and eye protection, of course, so that nothing flies out. And often you're going to want gloves if you're working with rough materials or something of that nature. To demonstrate this stuff, I'm going to be using a nail, 8 pennies, and a little flathead screw right here to demonstrate the power drill. First thing you're going to want to do on all of these tools is prepare your workspace. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to be using this little 1/4-inch piece of wood here. Nothing too strong. You're probably going to be using something thicker or different, but the first thing, make sure you have space. So push everything to the side. Hopefully your workspace is already better than this. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is secure it down. If you're working fast, it's going to be okay to use your hand to secure something like this. I'm a righty, so I use my left hand and right to go through, but it helps to have a clamp. So I have this one right here, I believe it's about 3.5 inches. Loosen it up, go here, get it on the corner. We'll tighten that down real quick. Give it, you don't want to go too hard. Get it nice and angled, and your surface is ready to start. Some other tools that you're going to want to use with these types is a writing utensil. I have this weird multicolored pencil, blue and green. You're probably just going to want a standard pencil. A marker or a Sharpie will work as well, but a pen doesn't really show up too well on wood right here. So writing utensil is the first thing. Then you're going to want a tape measure to measure everything. You want to be accurate, of course. And I like to have a speed square, which we'll talk about later, but this just makes it nice for doing flat and quick angles when you're working here, as the name implies, speed square. And that's basically it for the other tools you're going to need when working with these, for the most part. There's others, of course, but that's what we're going to want to start with. All right, let's jump into our first tool, the power drill. This one right here is a Black & Decker 20-volt lithium-ion cordless drill. It's medium duty, it'll work, it'll get the job done, but if you're working heavier duty, this is probably not going to be it. Some of the main parts is the battery on the bottom, has a little button right here that you press, and it's going to slide right off. And then you can charge that by sliding it in to its charging device as it needs. Put it back, you just line up the tracks, get it there, slap it in, and you'll know when it's in. On the back, you have this little bit index that holds a nice, pretty handy, both Phillips, let me show you, Phillips and flathead right here that you can use and store right there. Again, you'll know when it's in because it'll snap in nicely. Then we get up to the drill. There are some different parts to it. We have the throttle, of course. We have a little button right here that you can press that's going to determine which way it spins, and the chuck and the gearing for the torque. So that's a lot of info. Let's talk about what those mean. The first thing is the chuck right here. This is the opening where your bit is going to go into. To open it, you spin it to the left. So this way, you're going to tighten it this way, counterclockwise to open it up. Then when you want to tighten it, you go clockwise. You're going to see it's going to come together and clamp down. And it's going to get nice and snug right there. This one, you're going to want to start open. And then whenever you have a bit, say I grab this one off the back, go into Phillips, take it, spin it in, and you're going to know it's nice and secure because it's not going to wobble. Now that we have a little bit solidly installed in here, we can take a look at the direction that we want to do it. So there's buttons on 2 sides. So it's the same button that kind of slides. So right now, you can see I can push it out this way, or I can push it in and it goes out here. Basically, if you want to go clockwise to the right, you push in the right side and it's going to spin clockwise. When you want to go counterclockwise, left, you're going to push that side in and you're going to know, you're going to feel it, and then it's going to spin the other way for loosening things. And another setting is if you do it right in the middle. It's a little hard to see, but so we have left, right, and then you can balance it in the middle. Oh, if I can do it facing this way. And then it's gonna lock it so you can't actually press it, that you can keep it solidly stored in a bag or something, just so you don't accidentally squeeze it and nothing is gonna happen. That's the settings to determine if you're gonna tighten right side or loosen left side. Another thing to note is that if you're drilling, the drill bits 80% of the time are for going right to the right, clockwise, so as if they're tightening. So that's something you're gonna wanna pay attention to when you're drilling, because sometimes you're like, why isn't this drill bit going in? Check that you're going the right direction, because otherwise it's not gonna go in. Now we come down to the final part, the torque setting. On most drills, it's gonna have this dial right here. We can spin this around from a single number all the way up to something, and all the way to the max right here, which might show this little icon, which means drilling. What does this mean? Basically, this torque setting is how hard the motor is gonna keep going. It's a little way of helping the motor detach from constantly putting that pressure in if it's too tight. What does that mean? So if you're installing something into a really weak wood like this, if I keep spinning it, once it gets tight, it might rip the screw right through it and damage it. If you're working on a cabinet, you don't want to tighten this so much that it really drives into the wood and splinters it and makes a hole. You're going to want it to stop. Setting 1 is the lowest, and what that means is if I have it set right button for spinning clockwise, righty-tighty of course, if I give it just a little bit of pressure, it's going to spin normally, then a little bit of pressure, you hear that sound. That means it's detaching because it feels that torque. So it's going to drive a little bit, then feels that pressure and stops. However you build it up, bring it to 5, going, requires a little more force, bring it to 10, there's a good amount of force, but it's still going to do it. And if you put it at the final setting for drill, that means it's going to not come out at all. It's going to give it max motor power for all of it. So I can't even do that. It's just going to rip it around. So you're probably not going to need this one too much. I recommend starting at a lower setting and then driving it as much as you can until it gets stopped and cranking it up a little bit. You'll figure it out as you go, but it's good to play around with this because you don't just want to be on drill the full time, whereas you can just crank that screw, break the wood, make it looking messy. So start off lighter. All right, now that we have all the tools and understand how it works, we can start to get to work. Right here we have our piece of wood, 1/4 inch thick, clamped down. You got a little extra. Doesn't matter, I'll hold it down too. Then we have our tools here, and we're going to be putting in 2 things, 1 nail and 1 screw. So the first thing we'll do is find our measurement. So we'll I've got my tape measure here, we'll do 2 of the screws on the same 3 inches away and 1 inch in from each side. So we'll measure it, we'll go this way, grab my nice little pencil here, get a little mark, 2 inches. Then I like to do it, if you're going to do it like this, give it in 2 spots so that you can go through, 2 inches. Then you can run it straight through these, making a line to connect. And you don't need to quite do it if you can see them, so we see them right there. Now I'm going to go in 1 inch from each side, put a little dot right where we want it to go. And from here, a little over 6 inches. So going through these 2, that's going to be right there. So we're going to want them right there and there. That's where we're going to be drilling. So measure it out, figure it out first, take your time. As you know, measure twice, cut once, drill once, do it right the first time. Okay, now we're going to talk about some drill bits. This bag right here is pretty messy, but it's going to do the trick. We'll start off with the nail. The nail, you're generally not going to be putting in too many holes, if ever. However, if it's a really solid piece of wood, or if it's a really precision area, it's okay to drill what's known as the pilot hole, just to get it started. So on a nail like this, because you don't want that to be doing most of the force, and how a nail is going to resist pulling out is by being really tight in there, you're going to want something skinnier than the nail. So we'll take a look, pull it up to these. This one right here, too big, otherwise it'll just slide in and out. And maybe this one right here, maybe a little bit big. That looks to be about it exactly. Whereas this one looks pretty perfect if I would be able to get that out. Let's see. Perfect. Got this one, and one trick to use is it's a little hard to gauge how thick that is at the end with the actual drilling bit, but it's the exact same size on the smooth end. So take a look, hold those next to each other, and you can see it's a bit smaller, but it's still going to do a nice job making that guiding part, that guiding pilot hole. So what are we going to do? Put our safety protection on first. Take this, open it up by turning it to the left, then start to go to the right and tighten it in. 1 sec. Dropping it. 1 sec. All right, so we got it. It's a pretty small one, so just get it out like that. Get it and tighten it. You want it to be nice and tight. Then you can feel solidly in there. So we'll go with this close one here first. We got it right here marked. I'm gonna grab, we got it clamped with one hand, with one right here, but it's still good to have two. Gonna do it. Gonna line it up right on it. And then you don't want to come at it crooked unless you're aiming that way. We want to come straight over the top, one hand, making sure you have right way pressed, because I'll demonstrate lefty in a second. And then we're going to slowly bring it up to speed, give it a little pressure, and then push right through, and it's going to go right in. So after a while, if you're doing big holes, you might need to clean it out a bit. What that means is you go in and you just go in and out of like once or twice just to make it a little extra smooth. I'll zoom in a second so you to see, but just take a look at this. If I have it on the left side, trying to drill a hole here, not doing much. It's going down a teeny bit, but it's very slow. So that's really why it made a teeny hole, but it's going to require a lot of extra work. That's why when you put it on the right side, just going to take it right there, and just pops right through. Also, if it gets stuck through, don't try and pull it out. Don't try and muscle it. Give it some speed and pull it out. You don't need to go crazy with the drill or the speed drilling it. If it's a soft wood, you probably don't need too much torque. I did it on 7. It's okay. Could have done a little less, could have done a little more, and we'll take a look in a sec. Okay, you're in a little closer. So you can see this hole right here. That was nicely done. Blow it out. You can see we're right on our mark. It's gonna be, if we go to measure, 2 inches out and 1 inch away, perfectly there. So the next thing, if we're doing that pilot hole with that nail right here, we're gonna grab our nail, gonna grab a hammer, line it up. It's not really firm right here, that's okay, I'll still push through. Now 1 second, let me just bring it a little closer. Just so that it's a little more firm and is gonna hold it, because we don't wanna just smash right through it with the hammer. Move it on, get it like that, tighten it down. Gonna give it an extra hand. Nice and center. Don't want to crook it, of course. So, and you're going to see it had a lot of friction there, which is good. We don't want it too big. We don't want it to slide in, but we want it to be nice and tight. And you might not be able to see it too well, but that's in there firmly. So that's a pilot hole. If I was on this desk more solidly or on an actual piece of wood, that would be a lot easier. But for now, that does the trick, and that's going to show it. The next thing we're going to talk about is putting it in for a little screw right here. So I have this little Phillips head right there, and we're going to try and put this in. Similar to the nail, you do not want it too big. I'm going to demonstrate real quick what happens if you put it in too big. So I take it. Good. So I got this one right here, bigger one, bigger than the entire thing, or even just next to it. Put it in, line it up straight. Clean it out, and of course, because it's too big, it's not going to hold anything. See that? So that's the importance of getting the right size. You don't want too small for these also. This might be a little bit smaller than we need, because screws, you don't really want them to generally rip in too much. So you're going to want a little bit bigger. With screws though, how you want it to be is the size or a teeny bit smaller than the inner shank. So if you take a real close look, you can see that it has a little, kind of like this, little smooth part, but then it has extra rings that go out like almost 1 millimeter on each side. So imagine without the rings on it, that it's going to be slightly bigger. And again, lining it up to the ends of these. So I think this one right here might be a teeny bit big. That one right there might be perfect. So I'm going to put this one away, grab this one here, throw that out of the way. And let's compare the size. So you can see a teeny bit smaller, but it's about the size of the rings of the smooth shank inside, and then the rings is what's going to grip around it. So I'm going to take it, this right here, got this bigger one on, loosen that, pull that out, and let's see. Start to tighten this guy up. Once it's ready, keep tightening it. Whoop. All right, nice and tight right here, not going anywhere. Gonna find our spot here, gonna angle it there, get a good grip, straight on it, not crooked, and go through nice and smooth. Clean it out a little bit, and that's a nice hole. Then the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this guy out, replace it with, as we said, a Phillips head. It's not gonna quite fit in there, so we need to get it a little bigger. Still a little bigger, put that in there. Now we've got a Phillips in there solidly. So we can take this bad boy, hold that over there, nice and straight. Again, if we're going to the left, it's going to be loosening it. You don't want it going that way, you want it going tightening. So get that in. I can hold that steady. Then one of the other things I like to do is, if you're trying to give it some force, have your one hand here and your other hand on the back of it. That's where you're gonna give it that force. So once it's in, nice and straight, you can go right on top of it here. Now I'm gonna demonstrate, well, first of all, that's going righty. Then if I press the button to go left, it goes out, right, in, left, out. Now I'm gonna drop it down, so we're currently on 7. I'm gonna drop it down to 1, and let's see what happens. I don't think it's gonna do anything. Maybe a little bit. But you can see it stops once it gets there. That's perfect because we don't want it to damage it. However, if I back it out a little bit, and if I put it up to, like, say 10 or 8, look what happens when I go through it. You're gonna see why you want setting. Oh, right. It stripped it. It gone right through it and it ripped the wood through, so it's not gonna hold anything anymore. It's now effectively a useless screw. It's not gonna hold anything. That's why you need to be controlled with the torque on this bad boy. That's the power drill. Really good, really useful tool, and this is probably one of the first tools I'd get if I'm a home owner. You don't need anything too fancy at first. Any standard one is going to get the job done, and if you're doing it more often, you can get something fancier. But hopefully that gave you a good little tutorial right there. If this drill was the first tool I'd get as a homeowner, if I needed something else, the next one, I'd probably end up getting a circular saw like this. This circular saw is pretty old. It's old Sears, I believe, but it's gonna get the job done. Sears Craftsman. This was the real deal back in the day. So circular saws, I don't have this one plugged in, it's a little heavy. I'm gonna give a brief overview here. Basically, this is a handheld cutting device for cutting wood. So a couple parts, a blade. This is a 7 1/4 inch Diablo blade right here. Doesn't matter what blade you have for right now, but just get a standard carpentry blade. And basically, this is gonna spin really fast, and as it goes, I don't have it plugged in, so it's okay. It's gonna go up and just start eating that wood away. You don't wanna go too fast like the drill, or the motor can get jammed, but nice and slowly, and it'll go through. All right. I moved over a little bit just to get some more space, clamped us back down, got our clear workspace. I'll even push this out of the way, and let's get back to the circular saw. So this one right here, I don't remember the name, but it's gonna have the blade on the right side. This is gonna be better for righties, I believe, that you're gonna have that, you can put your left hand without risk to the blade on the other side, whereas you don't wanna be going lefty, having your hand on the close side. So don't do that, closer to it, keep it away from it. So this is going to work well for righties. Some things to note. Right here, it's got a little guide right here, which makes it nice and easy to follow that line. If you have a line, like say we go, grab my nice little pencil here. Say we go 5 inches up, or we'll go 4 inches up, using the speed square here. Just go straight across. Got a straight blue line right there. And that would be the path to follow. So let me put that pencil away, speed square away, and if I was going to go, line it up, and I'd squeeze the throttle. There's a 2-part throttle, so you don't accidentally squeeze it too often. It's got top part to release, then there's the throttle. If you just try and squeeze the throttle, nothing is gonna happen. That's why you gotta do the top, then you can squeeze it. And again, bring it into power slowly, bring it up, nice and slow, right through, nice and clean. Some other things to note, this right here is a protective spring-loaded cover. That means that the whole blade is not just gonna be shown underneath where you can bump it. Instead, it's only gonna put what it needs to do, and it's automatically gonna come up. You should not be playing with this because that's very dangerous to have open exposed blade, because what if you go like that? Take your leg off. Literally, it has so much power, these things, these new ones especially. That's the main part right here. Another thing, you can adjust the angle of the blade. Right here, you can see the blade is going straight down. However, you can also go almost up to 45 degrees by changing this right here, this washer. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna loosen it, then I can rotate this. You can see that this effectively has made it go crooked. So I can go like this, so you can go like that, all the way up to maybe 45 degrees or something. Then when you're ready, you tighten that down, and that's gonna be it. Another thing, I'm gonna put it back straight here, that you're gonna wanna definitely use is the height adjustment tool. So the height is, if you take a look here, if I just go like this, you can see that that is gonna have about 1.5 inches below. This is a 1/4 inch piece of wood. You do not need that much blade sticking out below that. So what you do is come over to the back here, and there's another washer you can adjust how far the blade is gonna stick through. So I'm gonna hold this up so you can see a little bit. If I can hold 3 hands here basically. And what's gonna happen is you can adjust to have nothing sticking through all the way to the entire blade. So what you wanna do, line it up here and raise up that saw. And hold this all just to show you. Raise it up so this is nothing through, just a little bit through. So I'll do just a little bit through. And then on that back side, you tighten it back up. And like I said, this is basically just so you don't have much exposed to your legs. So what that means is when you're going through, it's only just barely gonna go through the surface and not have a whole extra hanging underneath here. So you really only need the amount of wood plus an extra 10% just to give it some extra wiggle room. But don't have it too far extra. This circular saw, like I said, very powerful, and it's very versatile that you can use it with one hand. Yeah, it's heavy, but you can go any direction you want, and it's gonna cut through it nice and slow, but very controlled and still very strong. So this is definitely a tool I recommend. All right, the next tool we're gonna talk about is this jigsaw right here. This one called Saber Saw, Stanley, heavy duty. This one is old. Don't have it plugged in, it does work, but this one is powerful and dangerous, so you're gonna wanna know how to use it carefully before you get going. So for this one, simple on-off switch. Always make sure it's in the off position before you plug it in. Then once you go, it's gonna vibrate a little bit, so you're gonna wanna have a steady hand on that. Again, this one right here, the blade is sticking outwards. It's a single blade, and it gets tightened by a little Phillips screw right here. So I have a little screwdriver right here. What I can do, you can take it right there. Good. Trying to angle it for you guys. Take it. I can loosen it. Have it pretty tight, I suppose. There we go. And then this right here, this blade is going to come out. There's all sorts of different types of blades for extra thick wood, for metal, for plastic. So figure out what you're working with and just get the appropriate blade. They're pretty cheap, and they often come in packs where you get a whole assortment. And once you get it, you want to find it, take it, have it face forwards, push it in, and there's going to be some holes that you're going to want to line it up with. So take it, line it up with that hole right there, and you're going to feel it as you start to tighten it. And if you wiggle it a little bit, I can feel that it locked in right there. And that is going to be it. So you tighten it, not going anywhere, nice and secure. Then when you're ready, you'll turn it on and just go right through. Why would you use a jigsaw when you can use a circular saw that goes 10 times faster? That's a good question, but a jigsaw is going to be very precise. With a jigsaw, because it's just going up and down right here, you can literally do turns and curves, whereas a circular saw is pretty straight. You can do curves real slow. This one, you can pretty much loop it around. The other thing, the other benefit is that if you need to start in a location where there is no edge. What do I mean by that? With this one, we can start right here and go straight in, but you can also take it from the middle. What does that mean? I'll take my drill here again, grab the drill bits here, and let's see, don't quite have that big of a hole. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this big drill bit, and I'm gonna try and clean this out by wiggling it around. So tighten it, really tighten that in. So I don't have a bigger drill bit, that'd make it much easier. This is gonna hurt your drill bits a little bit, but that's okay for these demonstration purposes. Then, so imagine you have like a wall or something that you need to drill, or a big piece of plywood from the center. What you do is you drill a little hole, then you can start this right in there without having to start the edge. Then make sure you have a steady hand when you start it, because it can sometimes get a little rough at first. Not super rough, but you'll feel it. Get a hand, turn it on, and you can go right from a started drill point anywhere you want. So that's really useful if you're going to be doing something like that. The next and final tool I'm going to be talking to you about is a power sander. So a power sander, right here, it's flopping around, don't worry, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, is not used all the time if you're not really using it. But what do I mean? If you're sanding something, if you're not sanding something often, you probably don't need it. However, if you're sanding a lot of things, you definitely are going to want it, because sanding gets very old very quick. You can get these sponges right here to kind of rub it, and that helps. That's better than just paper on your hand. But a power sander is basically going to vibrate, move this paper a little bit, so you can just hold it and just glide it around, and it's going to automatically shred it for you. This one's old, it's not great. I don't have it plugged in so I can mess around with it. That's another thing too. Whenever you're working with power tools, don't be adjusting it if there's power to it, especially those saws. You can bump those and do a lot of damage. So once you have a piece of paper, what do? You got it? You're gonna find these clips on the side here. So this one right here is clip, and what that does is it releases the paper on the other side. So now I can take this, and you can see that it opens it there. So you get these in strips. I'll get this, put it in here, give it some tension a little bit just to hold it. Then I'm gonna carefully take that and clamp this down right there, and that's gonna pinch it right there. Then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. You can see this one right here is quite long, so usually you wanna grab a pair of scissors or something. I don't have a pair of scissors right now, so I'm just gonna rip this real quick. Hopefully it's almost straight. Where are you tilting it? Oh, it's looking terrible. Whatever, just demonstration, because you don't want it too much extra paper. Then you're gonna take that and find that other one. So this one, tighten that side. This one right here is gonna tighten, should tighten. Nope, here we go. This should tighten it. So once you adjust it, once I get the right side, I can do that. So get that, there we go. Got that, loose side right there. I'm gonna take that. Make sure, like I said, do as I say right there and cut it. Make it much easier for yourself. Get it open, fold it, and work it underneath there. It's a little hard for you to see, I know. Then once you're ready, clamp it down, and it's going to be clamped right there so that it's going to be tight, and you're going to do a much better job because you're cutting it. Please do. And then when you're ready, you're going to take it, plug it in. It's got a little power button. Some of them adjust, and you can just take it. Definitely wear ventilation and a gas mask, because this is going to put all sorts of particles in the air, and you can just go ahead nice and smooth, and it's going to do a great job at sanding much more efficiently than a hand sander or something like this. Alright, that is it. You had your overview of all these tools. I hope that you're able to start to get an understanding of the buttons, how they work, how you use them, and can start to see where you might want them in your use of personal life and building on a home or your own little projects. So just my own personal opinion, you're gonna wanna drill. Just makes everything so much easier. Yes, you can use a screwdriver, go by hand, but tightening furniture, it adds up over time. That just gonna drill, just rip right through it without Phillips or something, and you don't even need a fancy one as a homeowner. That'd be my first purchase. Then if you're doing a little bit more work, I'd start to get something like a circular saw. There are other saws like a table saw, whereas it's like a table and it has the blade sticking upright. That's good if you need more accurate cuts, but for most homeowners, this is going to be pretty cheap and easy to cut some wood real quick. So you don't need to use something like this old hand saw right here. Doesn't cost a ton of money to get one of those. I mean, 50, 60 bucks for a cheap one, and it's going to last you a while if you aren't using it much. So that'd be my next one. Jigsaw too, depends if you need it or not. if you need it. They're not super expensive like that circular saw to get a cheap one. And again, their benefit is really just putting themselves into like a drilled hole and starting from somewhere in the middle to create a hole, being a little more precise with that wiggling. And the sander, if you're not sanding, don't get it. You're not going to use it. But if you are sanding, if you have to do a full fence, if you're trying to shave down a whole table or some legs or something, get a power sander. It's going to save you so much time, and you're going to thank yourself for purchasing that, maybe 50, 60 bucks for another cheap one, and get some extra sandpaper here, because you're going to go through it and you're going to thank yourself with just how much time and effort you spent instead of scrubbing that arm and tiring yourself out. So again, just my personal opinions, but that's kind of what I'd go with. I'd say most people would want to own a drill. That's what I feel. But you don't need it. You'll be fine without it if you don't. So not for everyone. All right. I hope you found that video useful. Gave a lot of tips, a lot of info. Took some time to plan this. So leave us some comments if you have any thoughts, or if you want to learn more about me, our tool belts, or what we sell, or other blogs. Visit us at rdawg.com. That's rdawg.com. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.